Welcome back to another episode of the SBS podcast. My name is Ross, and joined with me, as always, are my co-hosts Kyle and Keon. On today's episode, we are starting off with the return of the NFL, and what did we maybe learn from UCLA's bye week in week 2 of college football? Is the UCLA 3-game gauntlet maybe looking a little less daunting? I don't know. We daydream a bit about the possibility of an on-campus stadium, and then, of course, we are taking a big, long look into this UCLA versus Indiana matchup taking place this Saturday at the Rose Bowl at 4:30 p.m. That is all coming up next on the SBS podcast. All right. How about my Bolts, baby?
Bolt up.
I haven't disclosed on this show yet that I'm a chronic Chargers fan.
Yeah.
Do you guys even you know that?
I knew that. I mean, we're all different NFL fans. I mean, right? So I'm a Rams fan. Ross, you're a Chargers fan. Kyle?
I'm split. I don't really know what I am. I'm half Vikings fan, half Niners fan. I don't really know what's going on.
That is such like that's so common with people that are from LA. Yeah. Kyle, we're both from Pasadena. Like there's so many people that went to UCLA that were from LA that they're like, oh, I like this team, kind of support that team, but that's kind of why there's like 12 of us Charger fans and not that much more Rams fans, because there wasn't a team here for so long, and it's just kind of the way things have played out.
Yeah, we talked about this like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a good point. For a long time in my life, I was just like an NFL fan. You know that meme where it's like Rob Lowe wearing the NFL hat? That was me for like 15, 16 years.
We were refs.
Yeah, we were supporting the umps. But then the Rams came and they were terrible that first year, and then I was like, okay, I guess I'll be a Rams fan.
I appreciate the hell out of someone that is from LA and has a very strong NFL alliance.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I
like
respect
fans.
it. Kyle, that's me telling you that I don't respect you, by the way. Also, I see it floated around from time to time, people saying that UCLA should switch its home games to SoFi Stadium. And I think that is a terrible idea.
I agree.
That's a terrible idea. I don't even think that would even help attendance that much.
It solves nothing.
It's not even that close.
No.
And I see it's not just like I saw one post, but like this gets brought up at least several times at football season. And I think that would solve absolutely nothing. At least the Rose Bowl, with it being a far off campus stadium, at least it's like a college football stadium.
Yeah.
Think about how awful it looks when like Pitt is playing at like Hines or the Miami playing at Hard Rock. It's just so soulless. I hope that never happens.
I have one sort of solution, because let's all be real. There's never going to be an on-campus stadium ever.
I wish.
Don't say that. I'm never going to accept that. You can believe that. I'm going to choose not to believe it, but go on.
That's fair.
I will dream.
There's a large piece of land opening up not too far from UCLA. I don't know if our listeners know, or if you guys even know. The Santa Monica Airport is being decommissioned.
Oh, that's right.
In like a year and a half. That is a massive piece of land, close enough in the West LA area, close enough to campus, that you could make like a 60,000 seat stadium, parking, and a tailgate area. Really easily.
That would be such a I love the idea. That would be such a random place for UCLA.
No, it is.
I mean, imagine like right by like Penmar. Yeah. It's just this giant like 50,000 person like college football stadium right by like that's like a quaint little neighborhood. I mean, I'd take it.
I mean, there's an airport now, so I mean, there's a bunch of noise and there's a bunch of things going on there anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I was like thinking of where in LA do we have enough land right now in an urban area to be able to, or even near the UCLA campus to be able to do something like that.
It doesn't pop up very often. So
exactly.
if UCLA is gonna do it ever, I mean, this would probably be the time.
Maybe I'm being like mega negative, but I don't think
negative?
I don't even think that is close enough to fix the problem. I think it's just the act of getting in the car or Ubering that is causing a lot of problems, at least for the students.
Yeah,
interesting.
I think it needs to be like you tailgate at campus and you walk to the game. Like
in your dorm.
That's what it's like at fucking USC. I went to Athens last year for the Georgia game. Like the fraternities are like you're drinking on the porch and looking at the stadium. Like, that is what makes a on-campus stadium an on-campus stadium. I don't even think that the Santa Monica Airport is close enough.
I agree. I maybe don't think that our issue with attendance is necessarily reflective of the difficulty of getting there. I think the issue with attendance is more of a cultural issue of the fans and of the students buying into the team.
Which stems from bad football.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, if you had a more convenient than the Rose Bowl, and you built a culture of fandom around this for the students to buy in, then it'll solve the problem. They could be the Rose Bowl. They have there's ways to get there.
What's funny is that this conversation only pops up when UCLA is doing horribly in football, because that's when attendance takes a shit. Yeah. Because the last time UCLA was good and relevant, I mean, in a real sense, not Chip Kelly's fake good teams, but 2014 with Jim Mora, UCLA led the Pac-12 in attendance. I don't think UCLA, at least in the near future, if it's possible to get back to that level of attendance, but at least within like 10,000 of that like 75,000 average that UCLA had. But yeah, let's shift over to college football. Looking back on week 2, is UCLA's dreaded 3-game gauntlet looking a little less gauntlet-y?
Who watched that Oregon game?
I did.
Yeah. Kyle?
I watched it. I was struggling to stay awake there towards the end, but I think, Ross, I was cracking up at the message that you sent where you had 2 people both texting you, is Oregon ass?
It was like there's some variance between like, is Oregon ass, or like, could Oregon be ass in back-to-back texts. But yeah, I mean, Oregon hasn't had a pretty win yet, and that Boise State game was no fluke. I mean, Boise State just looked like a more physical team, and they were pushing Oregon around, and they made it a game all 4 quarters. I feel like Oregon's first game, what was it, Idaho? That was a bit of like a deceptive close game. But this was just straight up Boise State showed up and at times just looked better than Oregon, and Oregon was pretty lucky to get out of that one with a win.
Oh, yeah, there was 2 points at the end. I think it was the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter. I think Oregon fumbled. Or they turned the ball over twice or fumbled, and then Boise State picked up and scored. And I think Boise State went up 7 with maybe like 9 or 10 to play. And I was pretty confident that Boise State was going to walk out of there with a win.
Dude, if Oregon doesn't get bailed out by special teams, they lose. They had, I think, a kick return and a punt return brought back for touchdowns.
I want to give some credit to Boise, dude. Their running back, Ashton Genty, man. That guy, the fact that he stayed at Boise State, he had NIL offers from every team in the country you could think of. In his first 2 games this season, Cat has 45 carries for 460 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2 games.
Ridiculous.
How does that stack up against Keegan Jones, though?
Keegan Jones has only had 1 game. Keegan Jones can run for 455 yards and 9 touchdowns against Indiana this week.
I don't even know.
We'll be okay.
I don't even know why I picked on Keegan there. He had a higher average than TJ last week or 2 weeks ago, but whatever. And then you've got Penn State nearly going down to Bowling Green, which I didn't really get a chance to watch that game, but that didn't seem very deceptive at all. It just seemed like it was a 1-score game the entire game. Did anybody get a chance to watch that one?
I was on the course.
Yeah, I followed it for a little bit for the first half, and which is when I sent you guys that screenshot of the score. Like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Drew Aller looked like Drew Aller last year. In that game, he got bailed out. Penn State's defense is good. I think that they kind of turned it on. I think they took the game a little lightly, probably, but they ended up making it back. Nothing convincing though. They're beatable. So is LSU, by the way, who's 1-1.
Before we get to LSU, I hope if there's any takeaway from like a Bowling Green going into Happy Valley and giving them a game, or Boise State or Idaho, it's that no matter how the Indiana game goes, before UCLA goes on this 3-game stretch, if they can see these teams hanging with these guys, at least have that in the back of their minds. Like, look, man, like these guys are beatable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you bring those up. Those were close losses for all those teams. What about, was it Northern Illinois beating Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana? Like, they should give us, watching that, and did you guys see the post-game speech by the coach? Anybody?
Oh, really? Yeah, cool. When he was crying, that was great.
I was ready to run through a wall after that.
Great.
That's what it's all about at the end of the day, right? But, yeah, you see those things like that. I could think of, hey, if UCLA marches into Happy Valley or Death Valley, any of the valleys, and gets a win out of any of those, you got to give it to them. It's possible.
Yeah, and I think we gotta. I always forget, like, when we watch these games, we watch NFL. But college football is just so much different. These guys aren't professionals. These are, 18, 21, 22-year-old kids, and like, I think that's why we love college football so much. Is anything can happen. Bowling Green can roll into Penn State and win. Northern Illinois can go to Notre Dame and beat the number 5 team in the country. Like, anything can happen on any given Saturday. And to your point, Keon, I just pulled up the box score here. Penn State, it was 24-20 at half, and Penn State's defense turned it on, like you said, and they only gave up 3 points in the second half. So definitely got bailed out by the defense. But, Penn State didn't look great. And, Oregon continues to struggle.
And Keon, you mentioned LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Nicholls State put up 21. They lost by 3 possessions. Dude, if you would have told me after the Hawaii game that UCLA would lose to LSU by only 3 possessions and put up 21 in Death Valley, I'd say we're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, the three of us. LSU has a bad defense. That's no surprise. But like you said, just a cupcake game for them that they expected. Ended up giving them some problems at points in that game. And I think that I'd like to think that we're a better team than that, and we can give them a little more problems, hopefully, when it comes time in 2 weeks. Wow, 2 weeks from now.
In 2 weeks. Well, we got to start promoting that watch party. Hey, no matter how this Indiana game goes, if you were an attendee of the watch party and you listen to this podcast, you need to get your ass back to Venice Beach Bar and Kitchen to keep that thing going, man. I want to see an even bigger turnout for that LSU game. I think that could be a sweet opportunity to really have some fun. What time is it, a 12:30 or 1:30 kickoff?
They said either. They haven't announced it yet.
We've been having some good weather. I mean, that has all the makings of a freaking good time. So get your ass down there. Let's shift gears. Gettin Parlayed. A quick break in the action. If you have not heard, we are giving away 4 tickets to one lucky listener for this Saturday's game against Indiana. And for a chance to win, DM us the 4-digit code 1309 to our Instagram at The Secret Brewing Society, and we will be selecting and contacting the lucky winner at random Friday morning at 10 a.m. Again, that 4-digit code is 1309 1309. DM us at Instagram, and we will be selecting you totally at random this Friday morning to send you and 3 of your buddies to the Indiana game at the Rose Bowl at 4:30 p.m. Go Bruins. Let's talk Kyle not knowing ball and blowing everybody's parlays over the weekend.
In my defense, I don't know how an Iowa team goes in the second half and just absolutely drops the ball in a rivalry game. I mentioned to you guys, you'll hear my pick in a little bit, but I might be done with rivalry games here pretty soon.
I'll tell you how. Iowa played Iowa football. This is Iowa football every year besides the last game. They don't have an offense. Cade McNamara sucks. He put up 40 points, sure, in the first game against the Cupcake, but in a rivalry game, you can't, But we rode with you, Kyle.
I was fooled by the first game. I finished playing golf in the morning and then got back to the clubhouse and was watching the Iowa second half with 2 Iowa fans, and I was like, hey, boys, my life's riding on this for Gettin Parlayed. The followers, they're not going to be happy with me.
I had multiple people that were texting me during that Iowa game because they let me know that they tailed us on Gettin Parlayed, and they weren't happy.
Yeah, I mean, I was dancing after the Texas game. I said, "Oh, -7, give me -20 at some point." I was gritting in my living room.
I was dancing in the first half.
All right, well,
but then Tennessee also came back, and Ross, as you predicted.
I think we can just assume that I know ball.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
And watching Nico play, by the way, I am fired up to see Madden. I am Aliyava, I want to say.
I'm getting some LeVar Ball, like, red flags and some smoke coming from Madden's camp right now with what I don't know if he is pulled out of high school football or something. So, hey, as long as he can just get to UCLA, and when he is at UCLA, for there to not be any weird off the field stuff, some weird shenanigans like we're kind of seeing right now, I'll be stoked because his brother is a fucking gangster. But
LiAngelo Ball situations.
What I'm afraid of the most, though, is a Tua and Tua's younger brother name, who I don't know, who played at Maryland.
Oh, isn't he Stinky Boo Boo?
Exactly. You have your older brother in the NFL, younger brother not doing anything.
Well, Kyle, luckily for you, we will let the past be the past, and let's talk week 3 of Gettin Parlayed. And we'll start with you, Kyle. Who do you got for us, buddy?
I'm going back to the rivalry games. I'm taking Oregon State as a home dog. I think it's plus 16.5, correct, Keon? Versus the Oregon Ducks. I mean, the reason I went with Iowa last week in a rivalry game was I was convinced by Iowa's offense. Obviously, that wasn't the case. I don't really know jack about Oregon State other than they were a good football team last year. They're well coached. But I know that Oregon has not looked to be the Oregon that we've been expecting. And as a home game, I think they call it the Civil War, Oregon at Oregon State. I don't know jack about Oregon State, but I do know that Oregon is ass. So plus 16.5.
He doesn't even know that it's called the Civil War. This guy knows zero ball, man.
All right, ride with your own caution.
Thank you, Kyle. I'll go next. Since no one has told me that I can't do pro teams, so I'm going to take my Bolts minus 6.5 against the Carolina Panthers, which might be the worst football team in the history of football. I couldn't believe the draft of Bryce Young when he initially got taken. I mean, the guy is shorter than me, and I probably have him by 15 pounds. I'm 5'10".
No, I like the pick. I'm fine with an NFL pick. But yeah, I think Harbaugh had a decent game. And man, you want to know if I want to? Maybe I'm going to incriminate myself here, but I included the Carolina Panthers spread against the Saints in one of my NFL parlays, and that obviously blew up in my face. Never happening again.
Lessons learned.
So yeah, I'm fully behind that.
Cool. So we got.
If NFL's not off the table, Ross, if I struggle with my Oregon State pick, do you think I can go to ping pong in week 4?
Some Korean baseball.
I'm a pretty good capper in ping pong.
Is that what my charges are to you? Fucking ping pong?
It's an Olympic sport,
yes.
Guys.
Keon.
Yeah, so my pick for Gettin Parlayed week 3 is going to continue with the college game day. So I picked, obviously, Texas last week. I'm picking LSU to cover 7 points against South Carolina. It's weird to me that this game is the college game day. South Carolina beat Kentucky in their SEC opener. They pretty handily. But LSU, I think at this point, after that opening loss to USC, they're in must-win mode, not only for the SEC title, but also to get into the playoffs. I'm a big fan of Garrett Nussmeier. I think their offense is going to be lights out. It's a touchdown, 7 points. So give me the Tigers in Columbus.
All right, so let's hear it.
So total for that slip, again, plus 600. So you bet $10, you'll win 60. So I will be riding and watching all those games intently. We'll know Sunday, I guess.
Okay. UCLA versus Indiana this Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Let's talk Bruins versus Hoosiers. And before we even really talk ball, for the first time, I want to do what is going to be our attendance prediction. I'm going to start this year on a bit of an optimistic note. I'm thinking 50,000, give or take 1,500 or so. I think 50,000 is doable. Indiana, I figure, will travel decently enough. I mean, I can't say I know enough about their fan base because I haven't really had to think about Indiana football and the quality of their fans' travel my entire life. But they're from the Big Ten. They're from a state where there's literally nothing to do. I figured they want to take a trip to Los Angeles, but this will be the first time that the Bruins will get a glimpse of the travel tendencies of the Big Ten. At least since the 2012 Nebraska game, which actually I noticed has a ton of parallels to this Indiana matchup.
Good point.
Both the Indiana game and the 2012 Nebraska game were the second games of the season. Both the UCLA home opener after a win on the road, and both in UCLA seasons with a first-year head coach. That 2012 game was 71,000 at the Rose Bowl. I think it's safe to say that we can subtract 20 from that because I correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Indiana fans are going to travel as well as Nebraska fans would.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
And I think that there's a little more buzz after that Rice beatdown in 2012 with Brett Hundley versus whatever you want to call happen against Hawaii. So I'm going 50,000. I think that that'd be huge for, what was last year's home opener attendance?
It was bad.
Well,
I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe our stats guy.
it was
Kyle,
probably-
I'll find it. I'll find it. Here I go.
Probably in the 30s.
So while Kyle's finding that, well, Ross, the reason you've never had to think about Indiana is because UCLA has never played Indiana in an actual college football game.
There you go.
So actually, no joke, on my notes, I also had 50,000 as my number. But for the sake of this game, I will give a little more faith to the Bruin fans.
Whoa.
I'll bump it to 60.
Okay.
And I'm going to
I don't mean to laugh at you, man.
whoa.
Yeah.
let me give a few points here. 4:30 game. I think it's a good time for a UCLA game. I think it's
big time.
I think it's way better than a noon game, obviously, and it's better than a 7:30 on a Saturday game at this point in the season.
It can't be overstated enough how big of a bullet UCLA dodged with not only the 4:30 kickoff time, which is huge, but having it be this weekend and not last weekend. It was 105
totally.
all of last weekend in Pasadena. This Saturday, it's going to be 80 degrees and about 78 at kickoff.
Yeah, beautiful.
Dude,
Beautiful evening.
just saying that out loud makes me bitter that I can't make it.
We're on NBC, aren't we?
Yeah, national
We're primetime
television.
NBC.
Dude,
Yeah.
4:30 kickoff, 78 degrees in September. Like, you can't really ask for much more. And, like,
See the beautiful sunset on those mountains.
I mean, for those that don't go to games, like, look, I get, like, the 105-degree Bowling Green games in September and no students. That sucks. But, like, no matter how bad the team is, drinking beer in 75-degree weather on the Rose Bowl golf course with your buddies, get some good tunes, some good barbecue, get a TV set up to watch some other games. I mean, if you even, like, casually follow UCLA football, name a better way to spend your October or September Saturday than that. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And
I
if
mean,
you're a student,
better.
I don't know if any students listen to this podcast, but if you're a student and you're not going to every single home game, at least when school starts, then shame on you.
Yeah.
You are a part of the problem. All right, moving on from a segment that's lasted way too long. Let's take a look at this matchup. UCLA opening as a plus 3.5 point dog at home against Indiana, who is led by a first-year head coach. So just in case you were wondering how bad the national perception of the UCLA football program has gotten in just 1 week of the season, and whatever else they've taken away from our offseason, who knows? But the Hoosiers, they're fresh off a 77-3 win against Western Illinois, and the previous week was another shellacking against FIU 31-7. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Curt Cignetti, the first-year head coach at Indiana, maybe a bit of backtracking after that kicking someone's ass in an old stadium quote. But he said on Monday, UCLA, a lot of tradition there. 3 straight years of bowl games, 25 wins the last 3 years. You look at us, 9 wins the last 3 years. We're going on the road. Somehow we're favored, which doesn't mean anything. It's so weird for someone to refer to us like that, you know? Like a lot of tradition there, a lot of winning. I don't know. Have you guys ever seen Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
The Two Towers?
Yeah.
Telling a UCLA fan that their program is rich with tradition and winning is like when Frodo referred to Gollum as Smeagol. You know, he hears his real name for the first time in like 500 years.
It's like that meme of the guy at the bar. He's like, oh, winning tradition? Haven't heard that name in years.
No, facts. I mean, could somebody pull up how many times Indiana has been favored on the road in the Big Ten ever? I don't know if that's like a stat that could be.
Ross, 2 days ago, Indiana Hoosiers P7848 posted on Reddit. IU football opens up as a road favorite in the Big Ten opener at UCLA. When was the last time this happened, especially in week 3? The horny Hoosier 1983 replied, without looking, I'd place a $100 bet on 0 times.
Dude.
So there's your answer, the horny Hoosier.
I'm tailing the horny Hoosier on that.
Kyle, mythical poll with horny Hoosier on Reddit.
We gotta. If we win this game, we gotta pull up
Shout
some
out
shirts.
horny Hoosier.
We gotta pull up some shirts that says like Hoosier Daddy.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they. I'm
it
sure
exists somewhere.
Dude, I'm sure they use that like.
Who's their rival? Purdue.
Who fucking
I
don't know.
knows? Who
Yeah.
cares?
I think it's Purdue.
I mean, Curt Cignetti. I think that's exactly the type of coach that UCLA should have been looking for in its last coaching search. I mean, albeit not ideal for the guy to be 63, but he's
a winner.
Yeah, it's a coach that's done nothing but win throughout his career. He's 121-35 all time as a head coach. But it's been at that lower level with schools like Elon and is it
James Madison.
Elon or Elon?
I think it's Elon.
At Elon and James Madison. I just think he's exactly what a program like Indiana needs, and maybe not for the long term as he's going to be in his 70s within a decade, but just to really breathe like a breath of like winning culture into a loser ass program, I think is big for Indiana. And look, their first 2 games, I don't want to abuse Kyle's willingness to pull up stats, but
I'm ready.
I
I'm
figure
ready.
for several seasons they've opened up against FCS opponents. I doubt they were doing 77-3 against those teams.
That was crazy scoreline.
I mean, crazy. They're racking up points. They're running the shit out of the ball, and the defense is lights out.
Yeah, man. If it's kind of like what you said when we were talking about the Oregon game. If Oregon racks up enough points and we see Dante Moore, I have a feeling, or I don't have a feeling, but it would be embarrassing if we get to a point against Indiana on Saturday where they're so far ahead that they're pulling out their second string QB to get some reps.
I don't. For the record, I don't see the game.
I don't think that'll happen.
I don't see that happening.
I don't think it being that bad. If UCLA is down so bad that Indiana pulls their quarterback, I'm going to pick up like model trains or bird watching. I hear it's not too expensive to get like those planes that you can fly, RC planes. You can get one of those for like $100.
Yeah, it's a lot easier on the heart.
Pop up in the comment sections hobbies that we'll pick up if Indiana beats UCLA so bad that they rest their starters.
Yeah.
Ross, I got what you need to know.
Okay.
Indiana opened their season last year with Ohio State, but they went on to play Indiana State at home, 41-7.
Okay.
And then they played Akron, went 4 overtimes and beat Akron by 2 points.
That is the stat I was looking for, because I know Akron is FBS.
They're an FBS, but they're not
They're FBS.
They're bad.
I would imagine they're kind of aligned with the 2 programs that Indiana just made look like Pop Warner teams. So, case in point, I think that Cignetti has brought a winning culture with him to Indiana, and whether they've got nearly as much talent as UCLA does or not, they're going to bring a well-coached team that knows ball.
Agreed. Should we get to some points on the field?
Yeah, please.
So I was going to say, I watched some highlights and I saw some stat line. Chris Rourke, the QB for Indiana, he looks not really good, I guess they've been playing cupcake teams, but he's 30 for 41 and just shy of 450 yards for 3 rushing TDs as well. Like, he's good. He's certainly better than what Ethan Garber showed us on a couple Saturdays ago against Hawaii. So I think we have to respect it. We have to respect the passing game they have. We have to respect the rushing game they have. I know, Kyle, you'd probably want to make a few mentions about that. I think the game is tougher than what we previously expected a few weeks ago going into the season, but I don't think it changes the fact that this is a must-win game for the Bruins on Saturday.
We mentioned last episode that if there's one thing to look forward to, it's how this defense that we saw play pretty well against Hawaii, how it's going to perform against just even a marginally better opponent. And I think we're certainly getting that with a team that's capable of putting up 70-plus points against anybody. And you're right, Curtis Rourke has he's been playing well, and I know they run the ball well. I just hate this part of the season when there's some data to look at, but against nobody. They've been playing well, but against bottom feeder FCS teams. So I think I know no one tunes into a podcast to hear the guys say it's kind of a wait and see situation, but it kind of is. I don't think we're going to know anything until kickoff, and we can speculate. But for all we know, man, UCLA might very well go out there off a bye week and make a statement. It's not impossible. I'm not expecting that to happen, but I'll get into what I think UCLA will need to do to win the game in a bit. But certainly not coming in. I don't want to be on the show and just only be negative. UCLA can pull this off and win this game.
Yeah, to your point, there's this quote I was thinking about while researching this, and I've had this quote told me, I'm sure you guys have as well, by a lot of coaches I've played for and worked for. The work you do in the dark is going to end up showing up when the lights are on. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a perfect example of that game. Let's see what UCLA did in the dark in this bye week where there was no cameras on them. There was no games. We have the lights on Saturday in the Rose Bowl. Did they put in the work, and did they, try to fix what the issues were?
Yeah, and Ross, I think you nailed it. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and I think we're gonna find out a lot about this team on Saturday afternoon. Like I think we'll know who UCLA is gonna be for the remainder of the year from this Indiana game, because Indiana, they got the offense. They're humming on offense, and the defense is also third in total defense right now. So I think as far as UCLA goes, we're gonna get those answers on Saturday, and I think that the Big Ten, they don't have that perception of UCLA right now that we want to see. And the Deshaun Foster, right? Can he mold this team into a team that is gonna be a winning team inside of the Big Ten? Obviously, we sat inside that third to seventh in the Pac-12, but the Big Ten's much larger. And can we be in that middle of the pack, upper echelon of the Big Ten? I think we'll start to find out over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, man, baby steps. And I think that that brings us to final segment of the episode, and that is why UCLA will lose this game and why UCLA will win this game. And I'll start with why UCLA loses this game, and that's because Indiana, they found a coaching staff that knows ball. Schematically, as a team, they're all on the same page. He's brought over a ton of guys from James Madison, both players and staff. And I don't think any of us were given enough by this UCLA coaching staff in that Hawaii performance, being shut out in the first half against the Warriors, to give them any kind of benefit of the doubt. The second they give me a reason, I will go full homer and never use this as a reason to bet against the Bruins again. But as of right now, I think this is a coaching mismatch, and that would be the reason why the Bruins let this one slip away.
For me, the reason the Bruins lose is that the offense can't establish a run game. If this team, like you mentioned, Kyle, Indiana has some decent defensive numbers. Again, we bring up the point against who, but if we're able to really struggle, if we do really struggle on the run game, and this offense becomes one-dimensional, I think we lose this game no matter how good the defense is.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly my reason for losing the game as well. I think it's it was pretty frustrating in week 1 against Hawaii. We could not run the ball, we could not get a push forward into the next level. And like your point, Keon, being one-dimensional against good defense up to this point, you just can't afford to do that. People are just going to drop back, sit in zone, and Garbers will have a tougher time than establishing a run, being able to work off play action and have some time in the pocket. So if UCLA were to lose this game, it's the run. They can't establish the run, and then on the other side of the ball, maybe the defense has a little bit of a step back, and this Indiana offense that's rolling on all cylinders right now continues to do that.
And this is a pro UCLA podcast. And we are now going to talk about why UCLA is going to win this game against the Hoosiers. And it's going to start with this bye week, these last 2 weeks. UCLA, this hasn't been enough time to overhaul the run game that we saw against Hawaii that was objectively terrible. But this was just enough time for UCLA to at least take a step back, assess what went wrong, and maybe stop a little bit of the bleeding, and found a way to pick up, let's call it 3 to 4 yards a carry, not 1.5, and free up the ability to run the ball more often than 13 design carries in an entire game. You've got a coaching staff, a head coach that's a former running backs coach for 10 years and a former NFL Super Bowl winning running back himself, Eric Bieniemy, a former running back as well. I know he's a pass-first kind of guy, but in no offense at all, no matter how pass-heavy you are not going to win a single game unless you can run the ball more effectively than 1.5 yards per carry. I think that the Bruins can get that done given the timing of their bye week, and I'm excited to see if they can at least right that ship a little bit, because if they do, I think they win with this passing game.
Yeah, for me, the win comes from the defense. I think if the defense is able to put pressure on Indiana's QB, Curtis Rourke, and collapse that pocket a little bit, rush him up a little bit, I think we can stop the run effectively enough to begin with. If our defense can step up into another level against a decent O-line, and put some pressure on the QB, make him make some bad throws, maybe get some turnovers going, I think UCLA wins this game.
They certainly Indiana certainly has not seen a defense like UCLA, just to go off that point. I mean, just list some of the guys on this defense. KJ Wallace, like we talked about last week. Kane Medrano played a solid game against Hawaii. Jay Toya goes without saying. Keanu Williams. I mean, UCLA has legitimate football player dogs on defense. So, again, I don't think – let's not even look at these last two games. I think this UCLA defense is going to be a total wake-up call for this Indiana offense and a true, real first test for them.
Yeah, agreed. I think that special teams might be another key to this game. I do think that Mateen Bagani might be a force for UCLA. I mean, when drives ultimately stall out to the 35, and I think he's got the leg, and he's got he proved at Cal that he can put longer distance field goals away, and that's not always a guaranteed in college football. But ultimately, I think we'll see points in this game, and I think the Bruins offense ultimately will show out, get a little bit more from the run game, and ultimately be a not as one-dimensional as we saw in the Hawaii game.
And assuming that Bagani performance against Hawaii wasn't a fluke, that would be, the ability to score points with drives stalling out around like the 35 kind of no man's land part of the field. That'd be a luxury that UCLA has not enjoyed since maybe J.J. Molson, like the last competent kicker that UCLA has had. So that just to hear that UCLA's kicking game could have a potential to win them a football game is something that I have not heard in quite some time. So I fully agree.
Do we have any score predictions, fellas?
Yeah.
Before we leave.
Yeah. I think UCLA on that note wins it on a walk-off field goal. They're going to win it 17-14. I think people are overlooking UCLA as a home team, and traditionally UCLA plays well in Pasadena. So I'm taking the Bruins by a field goal. I think our defense gives this Hoosier offense a wake-up call, humbles them a bit. And UCLA, they've been able to clean up enough of that run game the last 2 weeks and open up this passing attack.
Ross, you stole my prediction. I was going to say walk-off field goal going off my Mateen call, but I think there's going to be a little more points. 31-28, Bruins, walk-off field goal in the Rose Bowl.
Okay, so I'll be somewhere in the middle of you guys. I think that it will be a walk-off. I think it's going to be a walk-off touchdown. I think it's going to be 21-20 UCLA. It's going to be close. I think we're going to get a couple field goals on us from Indiana, and then we'll be down 20 to, what does that make it? I don't even know if the math checks out there. But anyway, I think it's going to be 21-20.
You know what? I'm glad that all three of our score predictions were Bruin wins because, like I mentioned, this is a podcast for UCLA fans. I think it is important to find reasons to continue to be excited despite a lot of things out there that are telling us to give up on this season and this team. It's too early for any of that, and I'm excited to see what is in store for this Saturday. So if you can make it, head over to the Rose Bowl this Saturday. It's going to be an amazing day in Pasadena. Great tailgating opportunity. Invite everybody you know. Fill the Rose Bowl. Make Keon's absurd 60,000 attendance prediction come true. If we can get 50,000, I'll be stoked, man. So wear blue, be loud, go Bruins, and thanks for tuning in for this episode. We'll catch you next week.
See you guys.
Go Bruins.